I'm delighted to have this opportunity to participate virtually at the 6th annual Understanding China conference. My only regret is that I cannot be with all of you in person. I hope that global conditions will make that possible by the time of the 7th of these important conferences. I should say at the outset that while our countries have our differences, and those differences are vexing, difficult, and important, and I have, as you would expect, a strong commitment to an American view of the world. I believe that there are enormous advantages to the kind of dialogue that this conference is designed to promote. That mutual understanding of perspectives permits a better search for mutual solutions. And so it's in that spirit that I want to reflect on the global situation. For many, many years, for thousands of years, the security of a people depended upon the strength of their armaments and of their fighting forces. It was armaments and it was fighting forces that repelled foreign invasions. It was military force that held off attacks by sea or in the last century by air. It was the capacity to assert territorial claims that often contributed to economic strength and to prosperity. And so we came to think of security as an issue that was centrally linked to force. No thoughtful observer of international relations can deny the continuing importance of traditional security issues. That is why my country and yours maintain large armies, large navies, large air forces, capacity to make use of outer space. And it is inevitable that the maintenance of peace requires the management of those forces and the balancing of the powers that they represent. But I would suggest to you that an even greater threat to the security of my children, of my grandchildren when I have them, of children born everywhere, comes not from the military dimension of security, but the common threats that humanity faces. The threat that we've seen so powerfully brought home to us in the last 18 months from pandemic disease, the threat that has been building for many years and will continue to build from climate change, the threat that may come from angry and disenfranchised people who feel poverty-stricken in an increasingly affluent world. For the first time in human history, mankind has the capacity to fundamentally change the terms of life on Earth through what we do in the climate, through the ways in which we do or do not control pandemic disease, through what terrorists may be able to do. And so my thought goes back to a famous exchange between President Reagan and new Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev at the start of one of the summits they held. President Reagan, when the two of them went for a walk, asked General Secretary Gorbachev, if we were attacked by Martians, would you come to our defense? And Gorbachev laughed and said, yes, he would. And he asked President Reagan, would he come to Russia's defense in the event of a Martian attack? And the answer was again, yes. And that was an important moment for the United States and Russia. But it captured a fundamental truth. We on Earth don't have anything to fear from Martians, but we have much to fear from viruses. We have much to fear from climate change. And so it is my fervent hope that we in the United States and you in China, the two richest and most powerful nations, who will differ as we will on many issues, can come together to provide leadership in responding to those challenges that are ultimately the most important ones we face. COVID was not the first, and it will not be the last pandemic disease. N1H1, SARS, MERS, Ebola, AIDS. In many ways, we were lucky before COVID. One set of studies suggests that the incidence of coronavirus is rising eightfold every 20 years, and further suggests that the risks from pandemic flu are actually greater than the risks from COVID. If that's true, we need to make much more certain that we are ready to respond the next time an epidemic or pandemic arises. That vaccines can be developed, shared, and injected much faster than in the past. That tests, pharmaceutical treatments can be deployed much more rapidly in the past. That when new strains arise, there can be more immediate and rapid efforts to contain them in a world of complete interchange. This is a task for leaders. It is a task for the US and China. And it is one that I hope will receive an appropriate focus. So too is the question of climate change. It probably will not be enough to slow the growth of emissions. Likely at some stage, we will need to remove the carbon from the air, or we will need to change our global ecosystem so that there is less heating. These will not be easy steps. They will demand fundamental innovation. They will demand the spread and dissemination of vitally important technologies. Let us hope that here too, we can compete for the economic advantage that comes from leadership, but that we can cooperate in finding the solutions that are necessary to preserve our global commons. My hope is that we will not see another Cold War between the United States and China, that we will, I know, not see agreements on questions of political systems, probably not see agreements on questions of what constitutes fair economic policy. But I hope we can find our common purpose in meeting the challenges that all of humanity faces. The United States and China are like two individuals, very different attitudes, very different philosophies, who share a two-oared lifeboat a long way from shore in a turbulent sea. They don't have the luxury of indulging their misunderstandings and disagreement, but must maintain a focus on what is ultimately most important for their common survival.